Welcome to Agri Matters, a podcast about the cutting-edge technology and innovation in agriculture. From scientists, venture capitalists to startup founders, we talk to the people responsible for bringing food from farm to table. Agri Matters is brought to you by Pinduoduo Podcasts.
People involved. So how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I think you and I probably touched base years ago.
When I spoke to Nadine Keller 3 years ago, she was just starting to promote her company called Aero Spring Gardens in Singapore. Nadine and her husband Torben had discovered a novel way to do urban farming using hydroponic kits that could grow vegetables vertically, a fantastic idea for modern Singapore, where most people reside in apartments, often with little or no balcony space. The orders were slowly trickling in, she says, until this February, when the coronavirus pandemic led to panic buying as the fear of food shortage gripped the world.
Well, we started noticing this in February. It was just, there were more inquiries about the product, just brand new ones. And we pretty much stopped advertising in Singapore because we were focused on the US market. We still had stock. We exported some stock to the US last year and left about 60, 70 units on Amazon. And it was ticking away quite nicely. We were selling about one a day over there. And then things started hotting up with the virus, with travel restrictions, Italy going on lockdown and stuff like that. And so the inquiries started coming in thick and fast, and Amazon started selling really quickly too. Instead of one a day, 5 were sold in a day, right?
Wow.
And yeah, and then they were based the usual questions: how does it work? Where do I put it? What do I need? Does it come with everything?
And these inquiries are largely coming from the US?
Et cetera, right? The usual. Well, yes and no. Once we were out of stock on Amazon in the US, Amazon completely delists you if you don't have stock. So then the inquiries started coming from the US. Do you ship to the US? And then, of course, in Singapore, it switched over. There were 10 inquiries a day in Singapore itself.
This is in February.
Yes, when we went Dorscon Orange, right? And the first launch on the stores, then suddenly the phone was ringing off the hook. And our old customers as well, who had assistance for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they were coming out of the works as well, wanting to restart their system.
Why do you think people are doing that? Is there fear? Have they heard, about food shortage? What's going on?
I think there is an underlying belief, yes, that because they've gone to the supermarket and they're seeing the shelves empty, that when you're there to witness it yourself, it kind of hits you psychologically, I think, and you have this urge to take control, or you need some control over this. So therefore, growing your own food seems a natural progression.
Nadine's urban farming equipment sells anywhere from $45 for a simple kit to as much as $1,500 for an elaborate setup that can grow about 27 plants. Food security has become a major concern in cities and has led to panic buying and hoarding around the world. But unlike toilet paper or tinned food, there is no point in hoarding perishables like vegetables and fruits. Agriculture also runs on a timetable, and there is an underlying fear that disruptions to planting, picking, processing, and transportation in farming could result in higher prices and, a worst-case scenario, supply shortages. City dwellers are turning to modern innovations in aeroponics and hydroponics, as well as humble pots on their balconies and terraces to grow herbs, fruits, and leafy greens. I spoke to Ma Cherry Trivedi, a businesswoman who typically shuttles between Myanmar and Singapore on work. Due to the lockdown, or circuit breaker as it's called in Singapore, Cherry spends her time these days tending to the many herbs she's growing in her balcony.
Okay. And Cherry, I just wanted to talk to you about some urban farming. I know you've been quite fond of growing vegetables and fruits at home. How's that going? Have you increased that interest because of the lockdowns? Do you find yourself growing more in-house vegetation?
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you what's happening is that once we get locked down, a lot of us bought food. I like cooking. I love cooking, in fact. So I use my time now to cook 3 meals a day.
Nice.
And we don't know what's going to happen at the end of that. But nonetheless, I've started to realize that sometimes when I'm cooking, some of the herbs kind of run out. I mean, I've always had basic at home,
Right.
which is I have some holy basil, I have Italian basil, and mint, usually growing with a chili plant. What has happened with this lockdown is that a few times that we try to go to cold storage, we've realized that the herbs are not there
Right.
or they've ran out. And that's a problem because cilantro is very, very essential in all of my cooking, mint is, spring onion is, so on and so forth.
And all medicinal properties I noticed as well when you were naming them.
Absolutely, because I also have curry leaves, which is very key. So when you look at these, of course, cilantro is a very much a detoxifier. You've got curry leaves that not only do these add flavor, a lot of them adds medicinal detoxification to your body as well as some antioxidants.
Cherry, is there sort of aligned with the shortage fears that's going on? Do you feel you're experiencing some of that yourself?
I think so. I don't want to be like caught off guard with certain essential things that we need for cooking is not there. So and some of these herbs are so easy to grow that now that I think about it, now we're growing more now. Every time we buy cilantro, that comes with roots.
Yeah.
The roots are what goes in the pot because it grows again, and you can kind of reuse the growth, keep cutting it, and it keeps growing. So for me, it's much easier, less hassle now that I'm home.
Yeah.
Might as well. And accessible. And I truly feel that a couple of times that we've gone to cold storage or even marketplace, or even my helper once or twice ran to Mustafa before the shutdown and also to Teka Market. It's not there, or the stores are not open. Then what, right? I mean, it's not like we can't cook anymore. We can. But the fact is that some of these are so easily taken care of in your balcony that I decided, why don't we just do it?
According to Miguel Elteri, a professor of agroecology at UC Berkeley, raising fresh fruits, vegetables, and animal products in urban areas can improve local food security and nutrition, especially for underserved communities. He says the first step is to increase public awareness about how urban farming can benefit modern cities. In the US, a country that normally wastes almost 30 to 40% of its food every day, dairy farmers are finding it difficult to bring their milk and cheeses to grocery stores, and the shipment of meats and grains are declining in some parts. With food supply chains breaking, pictures in social media of crops rotting in fields is adding to food security concerns. The COVID-19 pandemic may just prove to be a wake-up call for urban farming. More than 2/3 of the world's population is forecast to live in cities by 2050, according to the United Nations. In Asia, where many countries are evaluating border trade to feed their populations, Vietnam and Thailand have banned rice and egg exports respectively, for example, people are shifting gears to learn more about growing their own produce. Demand from home farming kits on Pinduoduo, or PDD, which is a large e-commerce platform in China, surged in the first quarter with the coronavirus outbreak because of concerns about food supply during the quarantine period. Singapore is a country that imports 90% of its groceries. The island is working on a food security plan to produce 30% of its agricultural needs domestically by 2030. I spoke to Karthik Rajan and Uday Mathapati, co-founders of Live Fresh, a hydroponic farming service in Singapore that assures pesticide-free produce. These gentlemen are helping grow vegetables on the land allocated to them by the Singapore government towards the 2030 project. So maybe we could start with that. Tell me what you guys are doing. I know the Singapore government has given you land to do hydroponics, but if you can just explain to me what exactly is it that you do.
Right. So Live Fresh, we've set out to, as we like to say, revolutionize access to fresh, nutritious food through high precision farming, and that includes hydroponics and various other technologies related to automation and so on. But really, the objective is to give clean, highly nutritious, crafted food that the market demands, locally grown.
Right.
So that's really what the objective of LiveFresh is. And as you mentioned, we do have a plot of land in Singapore, which is where we're setting up our first large-scale farm, focusing on leafy greens.
Okay, and where exactly is this farm?
So we are at Lim Chu Kang, which is near Kranji in the northwest of Singapore.
And I'm assuming this is like a piece of land that is being dedicated by the government towards domestic farming, and you guys are not the only ones there.
That's right. So this is part of a program that the government launched 2 years ago called Farmland Sales. The idea was to increase productivity of Singapore land for farming by at least threefold from the current level. So, I mean, Singapore was not unproductive, but really the objective was to embrace new technology to increase that productivity of far more, given the limited resources. So there were about, if I'm not wrong, there were about 12 plots given out for vegetable farming, and a few more for egg farming and other things like bean sprouts, and other local fish farms and so on.
Okay, and do you see, and now so tell me, at what point are you, and do you see production ramping up in the other farms? Where are you guys? So do you have produce coming on? What stage are you at?
Right, so we're in the midst of constructing phase 1 capacity. And that obviously has faced a little bit of headwinds, given the situation, but we're still proceeding with construction. What we do have on site right now is a small setup that we've done largely to, conduct some R&D, do some seed trials, kind of narrow down on the varieties, do some market testing, etc. So that is currently operational, and we do about 100 kilos a week of harvest from that. This is 120 square meter, that we've developed using similar technology that we'll be using in the larger farm.
What is the technology?
Right. So, Uday, you want to take this? You understand this much better.
Yeah. So, Kavita, we are talking about this technology, which is at a very high level. It's hydroponic. That means growing your crops purely on the water, which is a nutrient-rich water, rather than using the soil. So, you can always say that this is soil-less farming, and this is elevated. So, you build a structure which is elevated on the ground, and then you do entire farming. Now, we are particularly within the hydroponics. We are particularly deploying the technology called MGS. It's mobile gully system. That means the kind of channels which we have elevated on the ground will be moving like a factory style. They're moving like a conveyor belt. So every single plant which I've sown the seed will move its journey from its birth to harvest, and because of which we will be able to do per square productivity will be very high. If you do the same maths compared to your traditional farm, will be almost 30 to 40x compared to that kind of productivity is expected from this technology.
Okay, that's interesting. So is there an amount designated by the Singapore government for you guys to grow right now?
So when they launched the tender for this land, one of the criteria based on which we were allocated was, or evaluated and allocated, was how much can we grow? What's the total output that we can get out of this 5 acres of land or per acre? And so that was the criteria. Now we have committed to about 800 tons in the 5 acres. We think we should be able to do 1,000, but we've committed to 800, and that was one key criteria for evaluation as well.
Okay, and what are you planning to grow there?
So this is driven partly by market needs, and also partly by what is stipulated in Singapore strategy. So we are growing leafy greens. Now the market aspects come in more because leafy greens are highly nutritious. They're also most prone to supply chain shocks. So, or supply chain handling and stuff like that. So, the shorter the cycle, shorter the farm to table chain for leafy greens, the more nutritious, the fresher, the tastier they are. So that's the market side of things. So which means that we can locally produce much superior product in leafy greens. Now, the other aspect where the government is focusing on is really more to do with the diets and the what's staple for Singaporeans, and that tends to be more leafy greens as well, in stir fries, in soups, and so on, and salads as well. But so it's both. So it's from the market perspective or competitive perspective, as well as from the government's strategy.
Right. Has there been a concern around food security now with the unfortunate coronavirus outbreak? Do you feel you need to hurry up? And if so, what sort of impediments are there for you to rush creating produce now?
No, absolutely. I think everyone involved wants this ramp up to happen much faster. So while by 2030 is the vision, but this situation right now with borders closed down and impact on supply chain and so on has really brought this to the fore. Given the matter a bit more urgency. So everybody wants this to happen as soon as possible. However, of course, the challenges we're facing are what every other business in Singapore and worldwide are facing, which is access to material, access to people. So, for instance, we're looking to expedite construction, but then we are also dependent on certain specialists who are overseas in Europe and Australia to be able to get some of this automation equipment going, commissioned and going. So I think those are some bottlenecks that we're facing. Also, with this 1 month lockdown, we are, we're facing a little bit of a crunch in terms of local supply material as well.
Meanwhile, Nadine and her husband are also waiting for equipment to arrive for them to cope with the increase in demand for their urban farming kits.
So we were supposed to do a production run in January, but of course we got delayed because of all the virus situation in China when they went into lockdown, and we were waiting for goods that we had ordered in November and December to arrive, so they were delayed. So we just continued pre-selling until the stuff started shipping back in. And of course, it started shipping in end of February, early March. I've been sitting in the warehouse and we're still waiting for a few more elements to even build the indoor system. We didn't have enough timers and enough cables to make up the indoor system. So they're coming in about a week, and then we can fulfill those too.
That's it for this episode of Agri Matters. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, keep a lookout for many others where we discuss trends, topics, and talk to experts and people linked to farming. We are available on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Google, basically any platform where you listen to your podcasts. Also, you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can also reach us at hello@pinduoduo.com. See you next time. Goodbye from PDD Podcasts.